In Stripes brought to you by StripeHype.com, a fan-sided sports network. We are back for week 2. It is Super Bowl week. It is a lot to talk about. We're getting ready for the whole world of the NFL offseason, but we still have one more week to go. I'm Tim Daniel, really excited to be here again as we are tackling this new project here in podcast world. So also excited to be joined by the man in enemy territory out there, Mr. Matthew Wilson. Matthew, how we doing today?
Doing good, Tim. How about you?
Man, I can't complain. No complaints from here at all.
The territory is quite entertaining today.
Yeah. So some comments there we're going to talk about on today's show. So, to let you guys know what is coming up with today's episode of Men in Stripes, we will touch on the Pro Bowl a little bit, give the recap of how our guys did, good and bad. We're also going to touch base on Antonio Brown's comments today about Vontaze Burfict. So those were interesting. Marvin Jones discussing his plans for the offseason, and a new segment called Picking Up or Putting Down. So, we have a little bit to get to today, but let's go ahead and get started here, Matt. Obviously, the news today are coming out of Bengal and Steeler land. Actually, this whole week out in San Francisco has been the Steelers talking about the Bengals, saying they put the Bengals in their place. And then today, Antonio Brown saying that Adam Jones did text him to apologize, as he promised he would, but that he was so hurt by it he didn't respond and say that and Antonio Brown saying he was a true professional, which, according to Twitter, after those comments came out by Adam Jones, he definitely was not a true professional by the photo he posted. And then he went as far as to call Vontaze Burfict an idiot, saying he was out there to kill. So, with that being said, if you want to go in this argument of what Vontaze Burfict's hit was it dirty, was it not dirty? I know we've had this discussion quite a bit. That's been the talk of the town since that wildcard playoff matchup. But calling Vontaze Burfict an idiot, when if you watch that play over and over again, you can definitely see that Vontaze definitely pulled back quite a bit on what he could have done and then hit the Brown. What are your thoughts on Antonio Brown's comments today? Basically, it's adding fuel to the fire to this rivalry.
Oh, yeah. Brown, first off, Deion Sanders said it best, and that is, you got to talk about it quickly. If you let it linger this long, then it just makes you look like, no offense, an idiot. Give you a little background, because I know you and I have a little bit talked about, but I am a firefighter for a township down here, at least a volunteer firefighter, and my township the township that I volunteer for happens to cover his house.
Really?
Yeah, and so the only interaction that I've even had with him was actually fairly pleasant. So I don't know if the concussion kind of shook him up a little bit, and he's not right still. Because that doesn't sound like obviously the quiet, reserved guy that he was when we had to go to that call. So it kind of shocked me a little bit there. But kind of going back to what the whole thing was is Vontaze definitely did, and Deion Sanders said it best, and he said, listen, if he wouldn't have pulled his shoulder in, he was taking him completely out, and so. Vontaze could have very well done more damage than he did. And Vontaze is not a small man.
Nope.
By any means. Antonio Brown is not too small of a receiver, but he's not the biggest guy either. He's not an A.J. Green size. He's not a Bengals wide receiver size guy. If I remember correctly, he's right around 6 foot, 5'11". Yeah. I don't think he's tall. Wheaton definitely is. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but I don't remember him being tall at all. But
no.
It's football. Was the hit dirty? That's a conversation that probably you've had many times. I've been called a Steelers lawyer for it, and that was James Harrison said it best. In terms of how James Harrison played the game and how James Harrison was, the hit wasn't dirty. Mm-hmm. Was it an illegal hit? By NFL rule, it was. James Harrison said it best. And of course, James Harrison played for the Bengals. He knows Vontaze Burfict very well. And if James Harrison thought that Vontaze Burfict was targeting and trying to take out AB, he would have been the first one to say it because he knows Vontaze.
Yeah, absolutely, and I
Oh.
agree with that. By
So
NFL
I
rule,
mean, for Brown to come out now and all of a sudden start to run his mouth and say things, it is kind of it's kind of making the Steelers not look good. I mean, the Steelers, other than Ramon Foster, who unfortunately I know is an absolute idiot. I don't think he's bright. I don't think he's a great football player. I don't even see him coming back to the Steelers this year. If anything, I think Beachum actually should be the one they target more than Foster. But it comes down to the fact of Brown was one that I never expected to say a word. I expected him to stay quiet, play his game. That's what he does.
mm-hmm.
For him to come out and say this, something with this concussion still going on because something ain't right in his head.
Yeah, I agree. It's the fact of our guys are out there too, and our guys have had a lot of time, since that game. Obviously, they were fans like us that celebrated when they lost because they're human. God forbid they be human as professional athletes. And they were excited when Pittsburgh lost. I was too. We all were when they lost to Denver in the playoffs. But this week you haven't heard much. It hasn't been, the Bengals guys out there hadn't fielded the fire. We know that they're out there and they're out, doing the festivities like every other fan. AJ Green's out there tweeting about all the events he's attending. But they're not being jerks about it. They're not out there saying this guy did this and this guy did that. I feel like, in a way, it almost feels like the Bengals have been the team that's actually moved on from it since all the debacle, and the Steelers are the ones that are still a little salty. I don't know. I could be wrong there, but yeah, I'm with you. And about that Vontaze perfect hit, and you kind of mentioned by NFL rule, yes, it's illegal hit. By NFL rule, Ryan Shazier's hit on Giovanni Bernard's illegal too, but that wasn't called.
Nor was it penalized.
Nope. And the Steelers got the ball back.
Yep.
I was there.
I wish I was there, but then again, if it was in Pittsburgh, I might have been there. So.
Yeah, it was an interesting night to say the least. But yeah, I mean, I just want to touch on that real quick as we kind of got to keep continuing here about this. I fully expect that. I kind of have a feeling that Week 4, when the schedule comes out, Week 4, which is supposed to be Vontaze Burfict's return game, obviously if his appeal doesn't go through, which I don't really expect it will. Week 4, primetime game, Bengals Steelers. Do you think that's going to happen?
For the NFL's sake, I think they hope so.
Yeah.
For the computer's sake, I think fans hope so.
Yeah.
For everybody else, for the players' sake, I hope not. And so, because I don't think the amount of officials standing at midfield is going to do crap if they go that early in the season.
I think,
and that's for both teams.
Yeah.
And it's not to say that one team's going to cross midfield, because they can meet at the 50-yard line, just headbutt each other all day. But but I don't. It is a matchup that the NFL, and I think I said this in one of my articles. Maybe I didn't say it, and I meant to say it, but the NFL, in my opinion, could have had that game fully under control if they would have done the smart thing the second that Mike Munchak pulled Reggie Nelson past him, was to eject Mike Munchak.
Yes.
And that would have controlled the game from there on, because the refs would have showed they had full control. And it's not like Mike Munchak does much. He stands on the sideline, tries to look pretty. I mean, and I know in the Steelers, anything Steelers for a Bengals fan means you're ugly. But if they would have done that, and Mike Munchak doesn't mean too much other than the fact that every once in a while he has to sit down with a guy and pat him on the shoulder and tell him to do good next time, he isn't relevant to the game as your offensive coordinators, as your head coach, as your players on the field. And so doing something like that with basically a line coach showing we have no problem throwing somebody out would have controlled the whole situation. And so again, going back, and it's not to say the officials, were at fault for a non-call here or this or that, because we could argue that all day.
For sure.
But that was the deciding factor for how that game was going to go, and it started with that penalty and that call.
Yeah, and I had 100% agree with that, and it all went downhill from there. Just a reset here, this is Men in Stripes on stripehype.com, brought to you by fansided.com as well. Just kind of touching on the latest Bengal news as we get ready for Super Bowl Sunday. So, Matthew, with that being said, kind of talk about current news in the Bengals now that we've moved past the playoff game, and we've had our hearsay about that we'll probably talk about for eternity until the Bengals beat the Steelers in a playoff game, probably. Wide receiver Marvin Jones is the number one target, as everyone believes, for this Bengals team going into free agency. He's the guy everyone wants to bring back. He's the perfect complement to A.J. Green and Tyler Eifert. A huge part of this Bengals offensive success, and you even saw that in the year that he was injured. The passing game definitely took a dive with him not being in there. This week he's on NFL Network, and they're asking him about this offseason and everything in Cincinnati. And he says he wants to stay in Cincinnati. He says he wants to continue to be a Bengal. But he said he's not doing himself any justice if he doesn't test free agency. So he did announce his plans to test free agency, and also said he will not give the Bengals a hometown discount. I don't blame him in this circumstance, mainly because, one, you don't get this opportunity many times in your career to basically keep everything keep accountable in your favor. Two, he's going to be one of the top three, maybe even the top free agent wide receiver, because I don't think the Bears are going to let Alshon Jeffrey get away at all. And three, he's definitely shown his production belongs in that top product there as far as what's going to be out there. So I fully expect that Marvin Jones is going to be a Bengal next year, in my honest opinion. But I certainly do not blame him in this circumstance at all for testing free agency and seeing what else is out there for him.
No, I you can't blame him. It's hard to see him test free agency because you want to see him back. But there again, he's been playing for a hometown discount for the past 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
He really hasn't made wide receiver 2 money. So it's in his right to try to get as much as he can, and he has earned it, every bit of it. I'd love to see him back in stripes. But he's one of those that if he's not, I'm not blaming him. Could I blame, obviously the Bengals organization for not doing everything they could to bring him back? No, because we don't know that, and we won't know that. We can make speculation, and there are going to be reports out there, but we'll never know. Because I don't think the Bengals really open up too much about, especially their non-signings, but what they offered him, and maybe a team offers him wide receiver 1 money that the Bengals can't match him. And so, I'd love to see him back, want to see him back. Obviously, if he's not, you can't blame him.
No.
So
the calculated value, according to SpotTrack, who, if you are a sports fan, you want to see players' contracts and projections, is one of the best websites ever. I'll go ahead and put that in there. Right now, the market value for Marvin Jones' contract and what the projection is 4 years, $22,058,754, making his average salary about $5.5 million. In comparison to Golden Tate, who the Detroit Lions signed 2 years ago, he's in the third year. He's going to the third year of his 5-year contract. $31 million, where they're put up very similar stats in both their tenures there. You gotta think that that's going to be around the ballpark where Marvin Jones is probably going to get some money.
Yeah, affordable for the Bengals for sure. But that also brings up the question too: is if you're not able to bring Marvin Jones back, does that make Mohamed Sanu all that more important?
Yes. I think so. I mean, I honestly think that Jones is a much better receiver. I don't think anyone's going to ever deny that. But, I mean, Mohamed Sanu is kind of your jack of all trades player. He's your key player there. I think that there's going to be an effort to bring both guys back, in all honest opinion. I don't know if it's going to happen. But, yeah, I think that that does make him all the more important because one, it's a guy who knows the system. Two, it's a guy that you drafted to be your WR2, who hasn't really shown that. I mean, fully yet. We've definitely seen those flashes in his tenure in the NFL. But yeah, I mean, I think that that's definitely going to play a part if in that circumstance there. I think that definitely makes them look at drafting a wide receiver in the first round if Marvin Jones does walk.
Yeah, for sure. The big question there would be is do you put, and I know my answer to this, but would you put more stock into maybe going a little earlier in the draft for a wide receiver than if Jones walks, or do you kind of wait and let Mohamed Sanu kind of play into your number two?
I think you definitely have to put a little more stock on it, only because one, there's a lot of pretty good wide receiver talent in this draft. I mean, I think in the Will Fuller article I wrote, I named Michael Thomas from Ohio State, who might not even be the first Ohio State receiver selected anymore in this draft after Senior Bowl week. Josh Doctson from TCU. Gosh, there's so many kids out there. Even we can keep Will Fuller in that conversation, which I think he might be dropping a little more than I anticipated in this draft. I mean, this isn't to say I think that they'll flat out go and take a wide receiver in round one. I think they could, but you got to think if Marvin Jones does walk there, that in those first two rounds, a wide receiver will be off the board for the Bengals.
Well, I agree with you there. I think first two rounds now, being in Pittsburgh and being able to watch him firsthand, and I put a little more stock than maybe a lot of people do in Tyler Boyd. I think he is a good. I think he would be a great replacement for Marvin Jones. I think he has an incredible talent. He's got great hands. I mean, he's played with a number of quarterbacks who, let's be honest, for Pitt, weren't that accurate, and he still knew how to go get the ball. And so he would be somebody that, if they were able to I don't want to say pop up into the second round and give up any more picks, but I honestly think that if they could find a way to, see him drop a little bit to their spot, he's that pick that I don't think anybody could pass up at their spot in the second round. He has a lot of talent, and I'd love to see him in stripes just because he does remind me in a lot of ways of Marvin Jones and his style and having to adjust to the ball and making correct adjustments for the ball.
Yeah, I love Tyler Boyd. If you watch this year, Notre Dame played Pitt, and watching Will Fuller versus Tyler Boyd as far as who's going to make better plays for their team was pretty fun to watch as far as that wide receiver matchup. Very similar to, if you remember, 2 seasons ago when the Bengals went to Detroit and A.J. Green and Calvin Johnson just put on a show. It was kind of like that. It was that fun. But yeah, I mean, I think, Tyler Boyd's a guy I love in this draft. I think the only wide receiver that they're truly not going to get a shot at in that first round is probably Ole Miss's Laquan Treadwell. I think he's going to be in that top 15 range as far as if a team needs a wide receiver there. He's that talented. But even if Treadwell goes, you have Michael Thomas. You have, as I've been mentioning quite a bit, Will Fuller. You have, as you mentioned, Tyler Boyd. There is now this, what we're seeing from Braxton Miller, and what we're hearing from Senior Bowl is, man, this kid can play a wide receiver, and he's darn good. So there's definitely options. Corey Coleman from Baylor is one. Trevon Durrell from LSU. Josh Doctson from TCU. So in those first couple rounds, there's going to be a lot of wide receivers you can definitely look at.
Absolutely. No, this is probably one of the better depth drafts for wide receiver that we've seen since probably 2011 when A.J. Green was there.
Yeah, that whole A.J. Green Julio Jones draft, that was that was tough, wasn't it? How terrible was that?
It was a tough decision, but I think the Bengals did the right job. Oh,
I totally agree. I mean, you win either way with that draft selection, obviously. But I love AJ Green, and I'm definitely happy there. Speaking of, did you see last week? I don't know if you have ESPN Insight or not. Mel Kiper released an article ranking the top 10 players of the 2011 draft.
I don't think I saw that yet, And I apologize. I know I got a little bit tied up in the last week because it was in a month, but I haven't seen that yet.
It's a really good article. As you expect, Cam Newton's number one. Actually, I think J.J. Watt was. Let me load it up real quick. Because it was a really cool article. My point was being that it was J.J. Watt 1, Cam Newton 2, A.J. Green 3, and Andy Dalton was in the top 10 also.
Okay.
So, definitely made a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool because, Dalton's a guy that I know he had a bad year last year. I shouldn't really say a bad year. It was his worst year. The team that lost to the Colts in the playoffs is what I meant by last year. But I think that he's definitely earned his right to say that he's one of the top players in that draft. Especially, the only other quarterback in that draft to put up numbers similar to him was Cam. Obviously, the Blaine Gabberts and the Jake Lockers didn't exactly do what everyone thought they would from that draft.
And you can't blame Blaine Gabbert for that. Blaine Gabbert still did an excellent job. First off, for having a very difficult line, and Blaine Gabbert actually is very talented. If they can solidify some things down in Jacksonville, I wouldn't be shocked if they start to make some noise in that division themselves. Blaine Gabbert looked pretty good down there.
That was Blake Bortles.
Or that was Blake Bortles? Okay.
Yeah, Blaine Gabbert was in San Fran this year.
That's right. Okay. See, that's what happens when when you have a concussion. No, I'm kidding. But Blaine Gabbert was in San Fran and played terrible in spot of Colin Kaepernick, didn't he?
He had his moments, but yeah, for the most part, that was a lose-lose in that quarterback situation.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you take a week off from everything but lists. So.
Hey, it's all good. I haven't written this week. I thought you guys were going to send me an angry email pretty soon.
I think it's in drafts.
Oh, okay. All right. Fair enough. Awesome. I will be sure to look for that. So, with that being said there, let's kind of move on here a bit as we go through all the big topics as we get ready for it. Let's go ahead and touch on it, man. Let's get ready for Super Bowl Sunday. I know we talked a little at the end of the show last week what we thought about it. And, we both said that we thought, as awesome would be to see Peyton Manning win in his last game and go out into the sunset, we didn't think that was going to happen. But we both kind of, gave Carolina a lot of love there. My feelings haven't changed there as much as I would have liked them to. I still feel that Carolina is the better of the two teams. I think that they're just going to be a little too much. As much as I love that Denver defense and how talented they are, I just don't know if they're going to be able to really stop Cam Newton. And I think that's going to be a really, really tough day for them.
Yeah. The more I look at it, the more I kind of hope. My hope keeps going up for Denver. I need to stop looking at it because I want to see Denver win, and I really would love to see Denver win. And that defense has done so many good things, and Peyton said all the right things this week for sure. And one of the things that is getting me a little bit is maybe a little bit of the inexperience of Cam Newton in this situation in big games. And, part of me wants to say that, with maybe his head getting a little big with this whole MVP talk, everything that way, that, it wouldn't be out of the realm to see possibly what see Denver's defense do kind of what Atlanta's defense did to them and kind of shutting them down. And so, I'm still kind of I'm still on the Carolina side, but it isn't as far as I was just because, watching this week and listening to this week, Denver has said the right things. Denver has done the right things to prepare. And I'm not so sure Carolina has.
I get where you're coming from there, and I certainly have been impressed with everyone's press conferences, especially Peyton Manning's today had Snoop Dogg in it, so that immediately, I'm all for that immediately. Yeah, and I think that that's going to be a big thing for them as well. I see where you're coming from, and I see where you might feel that if Denver models what Atlanta did in that game, they should have a shot. And I certainly think Denver has a shot, and I certainly think that they can win the game. I just don't expect them to win the game. The only reason the thing that majorly concerns me is they're really banged up in their secondary. T.J. Ward, being hurt. I understand he says he's going to play. Not having David Bruton after his leg injury in the Steelers' regular season game. And then you count on top of that just a few other guys sprinkled here and there. Chris Harris not being 100%. That's what concerns me in this game. Not that not that Carolina has this huge playmaking receiver. I guess I can take that back now because Ted Ginn Jr. all of a sudden became the guy at Ohio State in the playoffs. But yeah, I think that's the thing that really concerns me there. Cam Newton's playmaking, you're going to have to really spy him a lot. You got to like Denver's linebacking core in that circumstance. Obviously, having Von Miller, who I still believe is one of the top 3 linebackers in the league with Luke Kuechly, and I'll go ahead and say Vontaze Burfict. I'm not afraid. And I think that that's going to be a big thing for them also. But I don't know, man. The way that the streak Cam Newton's on, the things he's doing, like Arizona's a damn good defense, man, and he just shredded them in that game.
Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of the tough thing there. Comparing, comparing to any game against the Super Bowl, the spotlight is a lot more on you, even from playoff time, and so, we've seen spotlight be too much for people. Cam Newton, at least this season, has seemed to handle it fairly well, but the spotlight has never been brighter and never been bigger. And so, it's going to be interesting to see if his youth and his decision making is youth. Right? I know he's been in the league as long as Andy Dalton, but Andy Dalton showed that he's not perfect, and sometimes his inexperience fully running an offense has not been 100% perfect. And with this big a spotlight, granted, he could be the best quarterback out there. He could do a great job, but I'm very hesitant to sit there and discount the fact that he's never been in this spot before. So for me, it's all about a wait and see, and definitely a wait and see. Again, I'm still on Carolina's side in terms of I think they're going to win the game. I just don't think I'll say it. I don't think they're going to cover any spread.
I don't either.
So I think this is going to come down to the last couple minutes, field goal, that type of thing.
Yeah, I certainly don't think it's going to be anything close to what Denver's last Super Bowl game was with Seattle. I think that they're definitely going to be competitive in this game. I think they're going to put up a big fight. They're going to need a lot from C.J. Anderson and Ronnie Hillman. They're going to need those guys to really step up. They're going to need Demaryius Thomas to find Michael Jordan's secret stuff from Space Jam and be talented again, because he has been very unimpressive in the playoffs. Because if they're going to put Josh Norman on Emmanuel Sanders, that's going to be a tough matchup for them. And Emmanuel Sanders is not going to get free a lot because Josh Norman has elevated his game so much. Obviously, there's Luke Kuechly, Thomas Davis. You have Jared Allen on the D line. That's a lot to look forward to check down. But there's still something about the brain of Peyton Manning that just gives them that shot in this game. And I would think that's where you kind of lean to in that circumstances. He made the perfect point this year. He's not 2006 Peyton Manning. He's not going to throw 95 miles an hour, but he can probably still hit the corners of the plate pretty well. And I think we're going to see a lot of that in Peyton Manning. I don't think we're going to see a lot of bootlegs, per se, from Peyton. And for some reason, man, I just have this feeling in this game that for everything he hasn't done since the trade, Vernon Davis is going to do something in this game for Denver. He's going back to San Francisco for this game. He's always been a guy that's really shown up in big game circumstances. If you remember the NFC title game to get into the Super Bowl when San Fran played Baltimore, he made some plays in that game. Even the year before when No, they lost one of the years, and he made some huge plays in that game too. So I think Vernon Davis is going to play like that wild card in that game. Granted, I don't really know a thing apparently because when New England played the Giants in the Super Bowl in Indy, I thought Chad Johnson might make a play in that game, and that didn't happen. But that's not, so don't take my word for it. I feel like he's a wild card in this game.
So my only question is if I remember correctly, Bugs Bunny made the secret stuff for Michael Jordan. Does that mean that Owen Daniels is going to be making Peyton Manning special or secret stuff?
Well, right now Peyton Manning's going through a lot of problems about potentially having secret stuff, so I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, I think we're just going to need, Vernon Davis and Demaryius Thomas are going to have to do something in this game. I love Demaryius Thomas. He's one of my favorite players in the league. He's very talented, but he has not done anything in this postseason. It's frustrating because he's a guy that you can see take over games. And, when people try to put Demaryius Thomas right above A.J. Green in their top receiver core, I laugh because of situations like this. I don't remember A.J. Green ever going through a game where he had 13 targets and only one catch.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be a good game, and I'm definitely going to be one watching it. So, and I think if you're a fan of the NFL, you're going to be watching this game whether it's your team or not. And so, Brandon, I'm sad that I'm going to have to deal with Lady Gaga singing the national anthem.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll get over that quick. So.
Are you stoked for Coldplay?
I am definitely a lot more stoked for Coldplay than I was Katy Perry.
Yeah.
Katy Perry played off for my 4-year-old daughter, so she probably enjoys that a little bit more than I would.
Oh, but I mean, the left shark was like the highlight of that Super Bowl. Not the last play of the game, not Malcolm Butler's interception. No, it was the left shark.
I think in Patriots fashion, Malcolm Butler cheated. He had the play call. I'm kidding. That was still one of probably the play that made that Super Bowl for the Patriots, and good for Malcolm Butler because he's made a face for himself because of that.
Dude, that was awesome. Yeah, it just super impressive for him too. I still think if I have Marshawn Lynch and I'm on the 1 yard line, I'm probably going to give him the ball 4 times and see if he can get in. But, that's just my honest opinion.
Oh, I'm right there with you. I think that was the stupidest call that they could have made, and Pete Carroll could have made on that case. So, but it happened. It's over. We're on to Super Bowl 50. So, and we've got 2 brand new teams. So we don't have to complain about the Patriots playing or somehow how the Seahawks found a way to revive themselves after the Bengals beat them. So we're fortunate we don't have to deal with that one.
Yeah, I agree. So kind of talking about other games, because this obviously matters while we're just, dear God, we're bored waiting for big things to happen in the NFL. We just had the Pro Bowl. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. We're going to break it down a little bit here. It didn't really go great for the Bengals in that circumstance we had the scare of Tyler Eifert being hurt. That was frightening. But other than that, we saw A.J. Green do A.J. Green things where he makes a huge play right before halftime when everyone thinks they're just going to kneel and go to the half. Teddy Bridgewater throws it deep, and Green jumps up and makes a huge catch. Green finishes the day with 3 catches for 60 yards. Eifert having just 1 catch for 11 yards. Also, we see from the skill player side, we saw Cedric Pierman get a couple of plays in this game. Pierman having 2 catches for 24 yards and a 6-yard carry for Team Rice in this game. Also saw a lot of Geno Atkins being very disruptive and keeping Adrian Peterson under center, pretty well hidden there. Adam Jones making the first tackle of the game. And by the way, did you by chance see that Richard Sherman gave Adam Jones a ton of love and talked about how much he really liked the Bengals defense?
I heard it. He's more than welcome to ask for trade to the Bengals. Would love him to come over. No, I mean he is a very well respected player, and for him to come out and say something about the Bengals and their defense and how impressed he is, that itself is very meaningful. Should be very meaningful because he is somebody who knows defenses. He knows how to play. He knows how to play against good teams, and he's seen some of the best teams. And so for him to come out and say anything positive about these guys and Dunlap and Gino and how they play, it shouldn't be taken lightly in the NFL ring at all.
Yeah, I agree, and I was really happy to see that. I think at one point Adam Jones tweeted. They put a video on Instagram of him and Richard Sherman at halftime of the Pro Bowl, which tells you how serious the Pro Bowl is taken nowadays.
Yeah, I mean, the NHL All-Star Game was more entertaining than the Pro Bowl. So
the 3-on-3 tournament was pretty sweet. I'll have to admit.
That I give them credit. It caught my attention. It kept my attention, and I favored it just a little bit more over the Pro Bowl when it was towards the end of that. So,
well, you also had 35 people decline their invitation to the Pro Bowl this year.
That's about as many people as you had in the stands by the look of it.
Yeah.
So bring it back across the ocean, and they had a little bit more reception when they didn't hold it in Hawaii last year, if I remember correctly. So
yeah. They're kind of the same place the Super Bowl was, right?
Wasn't the same place the Super Bowl was?
I think so.
Yeah, it shows you how much I actually really paid that much attention to the Pro Bowl.
I mean, we're on a football podcast breaking down a Pro Bowl. Does that make sense?
I think the NHL All-Star Game was more relevant to the NFL than the NFL Pro Bowl was.
Yeah. I mean, the Major League Baseball All-Star Game probably got more pop than the Pro Bowl just because of the Andy Dalton booing incident.
Yeah, that's true. Although I would love to see John Scott play a linebacker position after watching an NHL All-Star Game.
Yeah, I'm down for that. He's pretty awesome. All right, so we are live here. Just to recap everything, folks. This is Men in Stripes, brought to you by StripeHype.com, a fansided.com network. We got a sweet new logo. That's going up with this episode here when we put it to our SoundCloud. We are still working on figuring out the process of getting this on iTunes, but we promise we will continue to work on that until we make it happen. Matt, so without my obvious help this week, kind of tell some people who are listening to the show who aren't checking out the website at the moment, what are some of the articles you need to see this week, man? What did the team do really well this week that people should check out?
Connor actually just put up a great article today on the 5 Ohio State guys that the Bengals should be looking at for drafting. So if you're a big Ohio State fan or if you're a big Bengals fan that's kind of into the hometown guys, those guys, those are really it's a really good article to check out. Had I don't want to say totally interesting, although I hope that my article at least was fairly entertaining. Put out 5 players that are vital to next year, to the 2016 season success.
I did read that.
That we obviously know are going to be there, or at least right now have a contract for the Bengals. A couple guys obviously that you would expect. One guy you might not expect so much, although he's going to be picking up more of a role in that meeting. I'll give it away, Cedric Ogbuehi. Picking up more of a role, especially if Andre Smith does make his exit from Cincinnati in free agency. Even if he doesn't, I see him picking up more of a role and even kind of filling in a little more for Andrew Whitworth. So he is going to play a vital role, but definitely check out those two. I know I'm plugging the editor writings. Shows you Brian put out a good article this week, free agency look-in, Just kind of looking into hitting free agency, who he thinks the Bengals should keep, who they shouldn't keep, or maybe who he figures has already gone and checked out of their apartment in Cincinnati. So definitely check that out as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this or not, but Casey that writes for this site, I went to high school with him.
Who?
Casey, Robert Casey Sprague.
Okay.
Yeah, we grew up together.
I know him as RC, so you might have to kill me on that. Or I know him actually. I think I called him Robert every once in a while, but I didn't put the Casey part together, so I apologize.
It's all good. He had an article in there about the curse being real, as far as the Bengals there.
Did. And I edited that, so I apologize if there's any errors. I will fully admit I edited that one. It was a good article. Definitely brought a little bit of the Chicago side of everything out to me, because I followed the goat curse for the Cubs for a long time. So, and obviously them with their reconstruction getting sent a head of a goat by package. So I don't think anybody's going to be sending the head of Icky Woods. He is a very good guy, so please don't.
Yes, please don't.
Visit it off. But definitely a good article there.
Yeah, give yourself some plug there, man. You and I both wrote on the impact of these tight end extensions for Tyler Eifert. Last week I covered when Zach Ertz signed his deal, and then this week you covered when Travis Kelce gets his deal, which might be a little closer to Eifert. So, yeah, the Bengals are going to have a little bit of an uphill battle there when Tyler Eifert's time comes, which honestly could be this offseason. I honestly expect the Bengals will make that attack this offseason and try to get it done.
I think, and the one thing we didn't say with Marvin, because we did talk a little bit about him hitting free agency, the Bengals could possibly irritate him a little bit too. Yeah. Although I think it would be overpaying him a little bit, but they could franchise tag him and make him wait another year.
Yeah, I definitely I've had that thought for sure there too. So I could see that happening.
So not to irritate Marvin Jones, because he was just on NFL Network with the Super Bowl Live. So not to irritate him at all, because I know he's doing this thing out in San Francisco. But that would be that would definitely be the kind of the Bengals' way of at least holding on to him for another year. But obviously he really wants to see what free agency is going to do. So it might not be a terrible thing just to let him test it and at least give him a running offer. Yeah,
I agree. All right, Matt. So are you ready for this brand new segment we're debuting on Men in Stripes?
I'd like to at least say I don't have a clue what this is. So you've kept it under wraps. I'm anxious to hear what it's about, and then I'll probably run for the hills. No, I'm kidding. I'm ready for it.
All right. So, ladies and gentlemen, you've heard this before on other places. Buy or sell, this or that, love, hate. Well, here on Men in Stripes, with my love of the old school hip hop, we call this picking up or putting down. So what this means is I'm going to give you 5 topics here, and you're going to give your opinion if you are picking this up and that you agree it's going to happen, or you're putting it down that you think it's not going to happen. So you ready for this?
Only if you allow me to throw a new school reference in there. Like it's going down for real.
Yeah, I'm down.
I had to. If you're going old school, I've got to go new school a little bit.
All right, let's go off Bengals first one. So, reports coming out that the Philadelphia Eagles and DeMarco Murray may be parting ways. And with that news coming out, the Dallas Cowboys are recruiting DeMarco Murray to join them next year. So, picking up or putting down, DeMarco Murray will be a Dallas Cowboy next year.
The only reason I am putting this down is because of how it went down last offseason and the disappointment from both sides. I do fully believe that he is out of Philadelphia. I will buy that 99 out of 100 times with how everything went this season. However, I don't think DeMarco Murray trusts the Dallas Cowboy organization with how they handled his situation. and unless they are paying him a very pretty penny, I do not see him headed to Dallas.
I'm picking up. Because it's the perfect marriage. I see your points. I understand, there's going to be some things there with DeMarco. There might be a little bad blood they got to overcome first. But if you remember, I look at this kind of the situation with the Bengals with Michael Johnson. No, there wasn't any bad blood. No, the Bengals didn't, lie to him or anything like that or throw anything in his face at all. But when Michael Johnson did that year away when he was in Tampa, he kind of realized that he fit perfectly in Cincinnati. And coming back this year, he certainly showed that. So I think that's going to go into play with DeMarco Murray. I think he's going to go back next year. He's going to be behind that really good offensive line. He's going to make plays again. He's going to be a 1,000-yard runner again. And I expect that next year we can talk about DeMarco Murray and Darren McFadden being one of the top running back duos in the NFL.
Okay. You're talking me a little more into it, but still putting it down.
Yeah. All right. Now we can start the Bengal love. So, picking up or putting down, Mike Nugent will be the Bengals kicker next season.
I'm picking that up.
Yep.
And you may disagree with this, but I think the loyalty of Mike Brown may be almost a little at fault here. Mm-hmm. I'm picking it up for the reason that unless they're really going after or have somebody in mind that can really replace him right now, because he didn't really miss too much this season in terms of field goals and extra points. So I'm picking it up. Maybe this is his last year. I think I would more likely say that 2016 would be his last season. But I don't think he's going just yet.
I'm picking it up also. I think that like I said, the loyalty there. What does concern me is a lot of big misses. No, he didn't miss a lot, you're right. But when he did miss, it was in bad situations. He misses a 54-yarder in the Pittsburgh Steelers home game. He misses the Monday night game when the Bengals are up 14-0, basically to put this game away. He misses what would have made it 17-0 and rolls downhill from there against Denver on Monday night, where the Bengals would have had the 1 seed if things had played out the way they did. That's cool. Going back to last year against Carolina when he completely shanks that field goal to tie, there are definitely concerns when it comes to Mike Nugent. I like him as a kickoff specialist. I do like him as a kicker and do appreciate everything he's done in his tenure at the Bengals. But I will pick this up very concerned, I guess will be the word I use there.
I don't think his leash would be long, but we'll say it that way. I don't think he has a long leash. Being the fact that we're both picking up, I don't think he has too long of a leash this year.
All right, so going back to actually, you talked about this when we were previewing the articles people should check out this week, and the 5 Ohio State players that Cincinnati Bengals should look at drafting round 1, because holy moly, this class from Ohio State is ridiculous, and they don't lose to Michigan State. I think they won the national championship. The name that's coming up in a lot of mock drafts right now, Braxton Miller. So, are you picking up or putting down the Cincinnati Bengals using the 24th pick in the first round on Braxton Miller?
I'm putting it down, and I'm putting it down for one reason, and that is practice is great, and we'll use the Allen Iverson reference, but it's practice.
We're talking practice.
We're talking practice, and if you watch the Senior Bowl, he had, I believe, 1 catch for 3 yards.
He had a drop.
And a drop. Mm-hmm. And so I want to see him more. And granted, he did a good job for Ohio State, but as we've seen, college doesn't always translate into the big leagues.
Correct.
And so I would more want to see him in a little more of a competitive setting. I'd like to see what he's going to develop in, maybe a little bit more in the combine. I'm not picking it up just yet. I'm putting it down. That could change, though, by the time we get past the combine to draft. And that's if he proves himself even more. But watching what he did in the Senior Bowl, I'm still not yet convinced that he is fully 100% a first-round draft pick for the Bengals.
Okay, well, I'll keep my stretch going. I'm picking up, and here's why. He certainly showed that, one, he has the athletic ability to do so. He certainly showed that he is a very good football player. To make the transition he made in Ohio State, and it's not like Urban Meyer runs an easy offense either. I know they make it look easy at times because they're that talented, but I think that that showed a lot for him. I think he definitely has all the belief to be a slot wide receiver in this league. He's we go back to the top conversation of he is saying all the right things. He has the body size of an Antonio Brown. Not comparing them skill wise, people don't freak out. I think that he can come into Cincinnati. I think he can be a huge part of this team. If they do end up losing, I expect him to lose Sanu more than I do Marvin Jones. Obviously, we know Brandon Tate's will be gone too, but that's not really a huge part in this situation here. I think you can plug Braxton Miller perfectly into that third wide receiver or that slot position. I think he could be a huge part for this team's offense with his athletic ability.
No, and I mean, my opinion very well could change. I want to see more from him, though. At a pro level competition setting, where it is the scouts and the coaches running things compared to the college running things.
Yeah, and I understand where you're coming from there as well too. All right, this will be the first one I'm putting down because of who it is. Vontaze Burfict's appeal of his 3-game suspension will be a success.
You've already said what you're doing, so go right ahead and explain it.
All right, this is why I'm putting down. And this is going to sound like the NFL's a little biased, because they are. If Vontaze Burfict were, a Steeler, if Vontaze Burfict were a Patriot, I think that Vontaze Burfict would be appealed. But it's the fact that he's not on a major NFL team that people, that makes them a lot of money, even though the Bengals have shown that they are a very good, talented, competitive team. It's the fact that they're going to even when the suspension rumors came up, no one even thought about the Max Williams hit in the Baltimore game. All of a sudden, that comes up out of nowhere in that discussion. So I'm putting down because I just feel like the NFL is not going to let him slide. And for some reason, they do pick up, and something happens that first game where they decide to go ahead and overrule and let him play week 1. If he makes one, questionable hit, that suspension comes back on.
I'm not fully picking up because I don't think all 3 games are gone. I think it goes 1 game less. I think it goes down to 2 games. And I think the precedence is because of who, and we've seen this with Tom Brady, we've seen this with, and again, I know you said Patriots a lot, but it's who is on his side, and that is Eric Winston. Eric Winston is, or at least was at this point, a Bengal. He was there for that game. He saw it with his own eyes. He knows what happened, and he knows the instant reaction of Vontaze Burfict, and he knows the reaction in the locker room of Vontaze Burfict. And so I think because of that, he has a very strong representative on his side who can plead his case and who might actually be able to. And again, I'm not saying he's going to go. It's going to totally be forgiven. How all that stuff. What I am saying is I don't buy it. I'm not buying that it's going to be 3 games. I think they reduce it by 1 just to make kind of the situation go away. In a lot of ways, it's weird how much we're now hearing comparisons of a hit in the National Hockey League.
Yeah.
On a official for 20 games and how they're comparing that to Vontaze. But what I see here is that Vontaze did, in my opinion, right after the game, everything right. He didn't want to talk about it. He wasn't closed about it. He said a couple words, but he wasn't jumping out of his chair. He wasn't sitting there and cursing the NFL, challenging the NFL at all. He was very quiet about it. And to this day, although he has said a few things here and there, none of it has really been over the top, media jumping down his throat style. And so he has done it actually fairly right. And we saw that kind of same thing with James Harrison when James Harrison got into his issue. And it took a little sympathy on him from the NFL standpoint. So, again, I'm not going all the way that he's going to be playing week 1. But I'm not buying the fact, or I'm not putting down the fact that he's going to have 3. He's going to be at 3 games. I'm going to say he's there at 2 still. They still put the punishment on him. They may lax it by 1 game.
Yeah, no, I mean, it definitely could go that way, but I'm going to hold my breath on that one. All right, so the final topic in the first ever installment of Picking Up or Putting Down. Cincinnati Bengals running back Jeremy Hill returns to rookie year form.
You got me on that one. I'm going to put down for one reason and one reason only, and that is I think the NFL has somewhat caught up to him, and I don't think he's quite adjusted to it. And I think that this offense under Ken Zampese is going to be a pass-first offense coming a little bit more into today's NFL style. And that's being because, number one, he's a quarterback coach. So he's going to go after Andy Dalton, and he's going to try to use Andy Dalton's strengths to propel this offense. But with that being said, I don't think he yet has the transition ability to kind of overcome the NFL catching up to him. And so he might, as kind of time goes on next season, again, if you want to say I'm picking up for the second half of the season, you could say that. I'm just not doing it for the beginning of the season because I don't know what Ken Zampese is going to do. And what everything tells me right off the bat is Zampese is going to be a pass-first type coach just because he is a quarterback's coach, and he's going to be looking at his quarterback to lead that style of offense.
I'm picking up, and here's why. If you look at the down the stretch there, let's go from the St. Louis game to the end of the season. So there's only only 2 games there where you had to say he had a rough performance. The first Pittsburgh game on December 13th, he only has 7 carries for 16 yards. And then the next week against San Francisco, where the team was in a rut, there's developing to a new quarterback. He has 19 carries for 31 yards. Still managed to have 2 touchdowns in that game, sure, but if we were writing about how many touchdowns Jeremy Hill is going to score, we'd be picking up for sure because of the way the Bengals used him in that circumstance this year. But there's the Baltimore game. He has that huge run where he looked like young Jeremy Hill, and it looked like you could tell he was kind of getting back in the groove. And you kind of saw a little bit in the playoff game too, even before the fumble, that he was kind of getting to that that Jeremy Hill groove again, where he was going to make big plays. So I think it might have been a sophomore slump, honestly, and I think the fumble is going to motivate him a lot. I think Marshall Faulk even talked about that. That Marshall Faulk texted Jeremy Hill after the game said the fumble is either going to define you or motivate you. It's your turn to decide. And I think having all these people talk about him, he knows how critical this offseason is to what he's going to be. Talent-wise, I still think he can end up being one of the top 3 or 4 running backs in the NFL. I do feel he's that good. So I'm picking up. I think that Jeremy Hill's really going to learn from this season where, for the first time in his college or NFL career, he wasn't the man in the backfield, and I think that's going to really motivate him.
It's going to be interesting for sure to see what they do. And again, they still have Giovanni Bernard for another season as well. So the tandem is still intact. So we'll see.
Absolutely. So I think with that being said, unless there's anything you want to touch on before we get out of here.
We've got a full month's worth of lists and draft previews all coming up. Of course, free agency coming up in the first or the second week of March. So a lot of previewing going on there. So definitely Keep looking at Stripe Hype for that information, for our opinions. And don't be afraid to comment on your opinion on who they should, what they should do, and how we're wrong on those lists. Because I know a lot of people like to say that on Twitter and on Facebook, and they like to sit there at the computer and tell us how wrong we are. Don't be afraid to give us your opinion for sure. We want to hear it.
Absolutely. So with that being said, we're going to close out this week's edition of Men in Stripes. Thanks again for tuning in if you're being a long-time listener of our 2 episodes. We're really excited about this progress and the process we're putting together as we continue to make this go and move forward. So everyone enjoy the rest of their week. Enjoy Super Bowl Sunday. And have a good one, everyone.
Uday.